Emma.
Great to have
Hi
you.
there, everyone.
Hi, Joe.
Hi, Joe.
Hi, Debbie.
Hi, who's that?
Let me put you on. Okay, say hello.
I loved your piano playing the other day.
Oh, thank you.
It was beautiful.
Nice shirts, Craig.
Wait, couldn't hear you. Say it again. Oh, do you hear it?
Nice shirts.
Oh, yeah.
It really looks nice with the background.
Ah, very
It does go nice with the background. You think of everything.
good.
Good. Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about something called bids for attention. And it's probably one of my favorite concepts because making and receiving bids is really at the core of having a successful marriage. And many of you may be familiar with bids for attention, but basically the concept was constructed by a couples researcher, and his name, we've mentioned him on the show many times, John Gottman. And John Gottman, at the heart of it, is really an amazing couples researcher. And what he did many years ago is he really wanted to get serious about looking at couples in their natural habitat. And so he created, as far as he could, a natural habitat. And for 160 couples, I think it was, he created these apartments. And he had these couples stay overnight. They were newlywed couples. And he measured and tracked everything they did in that apartment, every single interaction, even their pulse was measured.
No, by us it's not even recorded. They record it. I can't record it. How am I going to record it?
Okay, we included you. You had to cut off. Anyhow, so they measured everything. And then John looked at the end of 6 years, were these couples together or were they not? And if they were together, were they in a happy marriage? And he split them apart into two groups. The ones that were together and were happy, he called them masters. And the ones that were together but not happy or not together anymore after 6 years, he called them disasters. And then he got really curious. So what distinguishes the masters from the disasters? In other words, what does it take to create a happy, connected relationship? And that's why his research is so interesting. Bids for attention is at the heart, not exclusively, but at the heart of what creates a healthy and satisfying relationship. A bid for attention is basically any attempt that I make to connect with you. Mm-hmm. It could be a question. Hey, Craig, how was your day today? Or it could just be, I plop down into the sofa at the end of the day and just say, oh, God. I'm not asking him anything. I'm just saying something. But
It's a bid for an interaction with your partner. Some kind of bid for an interaction.
So
one partner is trying to engage somehow with the other.
That's it.
Got it.
You got it.
Got it.
That's it. So when we make bids for attention, we want them to be responded to. And what John found is that in these successful couples, the successful ones made more bids and responded to them positively by 86%. So in the successful couples, the masters, 86% of them were making and responding to bids successfully, where in the disasters, it was like 33%.
And those typically ended in divorce.
Right, that's the disasters. They were, at the end of 6 years, they were not together, or they were together and not happy.
Right.
And so making and responding to bids is really the hallmark of being in a successful relationship.
It's an incredible piece of data to take in because it gives you a lot of control over your relationship, the success of your relationship. Because if you can learn how to be attentive to bids for attention, you're building in an incredible success opportunity into your relationship. Whereas if you don't, you have no idea what you were talking about after this session, bids for attention, chances are, or there's more possibility that you're going to end up in that 33%. So it's a really important learning tool. Yeah.
Very important.
Thank you. Very important.
Okay, so what we're going to do tonight is we talked about what a bid is, any attempt to get my partner's attention. And what we're going to talk about is how do I respond to them? And there's 3 basic ways.
Before you do that, could you talk about bids in terms of connection? I know you think a lot about that.
Right. Well, connection is really like the foundation of a loving relationship. And basically, we all yearn for connection. And when I feel safe and I'm in a relationship, when I know that I reach out to my partner, he's going to most of the time reach back out for me, I feel like he's got my back. I feel like I'm a priority. I feel like I matter to him. And when he doesn't reach back to me, then I feel just the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like a priority. I don't feel like you matter to me. I matter to you.
Right.
And I don't feel safe and loving. And so that's why bids for attention, how we respond to them, are foundational.
And there's a lot of different examples we're going to rehearse in front of you essentially today, but I wanted to just give you a quick list of the types of bids. Okay. There's nonverbal bids. Like if I'm looking or staring at my partner and she just ignores me, that would be ignoring a bid. There's making a comment. There's a question, asking a question. And then there's lots and lots of requests, right? I can make a request for information. I can make a request for you to chat with me. I can make a request to help me problem solve something. I can make a request for affection, right? So there's lots and lots of different requests that we make to each other all day long. And by the way, Debbie pointed out to me that you can go through a day and have over 100 bids go on between you as a couple. So they're happening all the time.
Actually, it's more than 100. I mean, if you think about like how subtle a bid can be. So if we're having dinner and I say, can you pass the ketchup?
Right.
And you pass it to me like that. There you go. That's a bid.
Right.
Right.
All day long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
basically anything.
So you were talking about the 3 types.
I lost my train of
Sorry,
thought.
I
It's
interrupted
okay.
you.
There's 3 types. Do you have
Yeah.
a question?
We do have a few questions, but you might be answering this with your next.
Okay, well,
portion.
let's just hear it. Well,
So one of the questions was, what's the difference between a question and a request for information? I think those were held out as different types of bids.
right. So the question is, what's the difference between a question as a bid for attention and a request for information? Sounds like it could be the same.
Could be.
But basically, there's no difference. It's an attempt to get your attention. In this case, I want information or an answer to my question. There are different levels of bids, and they differ in terms of the intimacy. So if I say to Craig,
Or intensity.
or intensity. So if I say to Craig, hey, look at that boat. It's like a low-level bid. It's a statement of fact, but it's still a bid because I kind of want him to respond to it. So if Craig, and I say, look at that boat, and he says,
Oh.
nothing. He just doesn't do anything.
Word.
It doesn't leave me feeling really good. It's a missed bid.
Missed bid. We're going to talk about missed
We're going to
bids in a
talk
second.
about that, but it doesn't feel good. And so I'm not likely to rebid. I'm not likely to say, look at that boat.
Right.
I'm likely to just not feel very good about it.
Right.
I feel like he doesn't even know I'm here.
So the 3 types, we're going to talk about 3 different types of bids. One is turning towards. So you turn into the bid, you acknowledge the bid, you recognize the bid. We'll talk about that. There's turning away or missing the bid entirely. And then there's turning against the bid. So those are 3 levels of bids. And we're going to talk about each one and show you what they each look like. So the first one is turning towards. Go away. Trying to take my notes away. It's my little blanket here. My security blanket.
Okay, so we're going to talk about turning
Towards a response. Yes.
Okay, so turning toward a response is simply acknowledging it. And you can acknowledge it with like flat. Like, hey, look at, there's a boat. Yeah. Still turning towards. I still acknowledged it, but I don't have a lot of enthusiasm. Or I can say, hey, look, there's a boat. And Craig could say with a little bit more enthusiasm, what would you say?
With more enthusiasm? That's a cool looking boat.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Now we're connected. See the difference it makes? Like, or he can be like really enthusiastic. Hey, sweetie, there's a boat. Look at that.
Wow. I want a boat. You ever
Me
think about getting a
too.
boat?
We should
Let's
think
talk
about
about-
getting a boat.
That is a cool boat.
That's so
It
cool.
might be time to get a boat.
I think it's time to get a boat. Okay, you
So-
see the difference.
Different energy levels. Actually, there's 5 different energies levels. There's a passive response. So a passive response would be me, probably just a one-word answer like, oh, nice boat, you know? Then there's low energy response, which might be just a little bit more energy. There's an attentive response, an enthusiastic response, and a playful response. So playful could be fun too, like what we were just doing. Yeah, we're like little kids. Yeah, let's buy a boat. Wow, cool. That's kind of playful, right?
It's playful. And not every bid has to be at that level, but it just, what Craig's demonstrating with these different levels is that it can be, there's variations of it. And the more engaged you are, the better. Okay.
So, you know, also, can you speak to the idea there's text and then there's subtext? So a lot of times a bid for a response will not be actually what the person is asking for. Let me give you an example. Let's say your partner makes a request to you. How was your day? Come home from the end of your day and your partner says, how was your day? So the text on that is they want to hear about your day. The subtext to that is, I would like to connect with you. You know, it's been a long day. We've been apart all day. I'm really looking for some kind of a connection. The statement, how was your day, is a way for us to feel connected. So there's always a text and a subtext, right?
Right,
And
right.
I think it's really important to think about the subtext. So that was turning towards a response.
Turning towards, yeah. It's really important. With all the bids, you want to turn toward them as much as possible. And even the masters, they don't get it right all the time. It's only 80, what did I say, 83%,
yeah.
88%. So there's a significant portion, maybe not significant, but there's definitely a portion where they're just missing them.
You're missing it.
And so you don't have to turn toward all the bids because nobody's perfect and we just miss them.
Yeah.
But we want to be attentive and turn toward more than not.
Absolutely. Of course, there's going to be those times when we turn away or we miss the bid completely.
So what's interesting about this, there's 3 ways to respond to a bid. Turning toward it, which is what we were talking about, acknowledging it,
Yep.
being engaged with it. And the other one is turning away, which is what we're going to talk about. And then the third way is turning against. So what's interesting about turning away, the second one we're going to talk about, is it's actually more destructive in a relationship than turning against. Isn't that counterintuitive?
Mhm.
Doesn't it seem like if we miss a bid, it's not as bad as if we turn against one? You know, there's a boat. I don't want to talk about boats. That's turning against. But missing it is actually more destructive. And we're going to tell you why in a second. Okay.
Yeah. So there's a couple levels of this turning away, and we're going to demonstrate them. One is when you interrupt. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. What?
Can I interrupt you?
Go ahead.
But before we get into the different
Yeah.
levels, I want to say why turning away
Sure.
is
So
more
devastating.
destructive.
Yeah.
Do you know why?
Well, I think if you turn away, you're ignoring the person. You know, you're just like you don't care.
Right.
If you're turning against, at least you're interacting, even if it's
Right.
kind of like dismissive or negative. At least there's some level
There's
of
some meat on the
And you
table
can
that you
repair
can
it.
talk
You
to,
can
right?
repair
What do you
it.
mean you don't want to talk about
Yeah,
boats?
yeah.
You liked boats last week.
Right.
Now you don't want to talk about it?
Right.
There's an engagement, there's
Right.
a connection.
Right, but to turn against is like,
To turn away
And
from.
to turn away
It's
from.
like, I don't matter. Like,
Yeah.
you're not even
Right.
listening to me. I'm
Right.
not even here.
let's
Certainly
give
not
an,
a priority.
should we give an example of
Okay.
what that looks like?
Okay. Okay, so how about this? How about, hey, Craig, I'm looking outside and I'm seeing a hawk out
Am I
there.
doing it, you turning against or just dismissing?
You're turning away,
Turning away, okay,
which means you're missing it.
right,
You're just
Right.
like you're not paying attention to me.
right.
I'm not
okay,
a priority.
Okay, go
This
ahead.
is the worst one. Hey, Craig, look, I think that hawk out there is the same one we saw a month ago, isn't it?
What time is dinner tonight?
Okay, so what he's doing is he's turning away by changing the subject. Isn't there a name for that?
It's disregarding the
He's-
bid or interrupting it.
Yeah, he's just disregarding it. He's just
Yeah.
like, what you said just now, that hawk out there, has no meaning to me. Nothing.
Right,
I want to know about dinner.
Right.
So that would
We'll do
be,
another one.
okay. So, hey, Craig. Oh my God, that's the same hawk that
I'll
was
be
there.
right there, Joey. Just a minute.
Okay, I don't feel so good about him and about myself because I was really actively trying to connect with him and he totally disregarded me, got up and left. So now you can kind of see why missing a bid is more devastating than turning against it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So that would be
Missing a bid.
missing a bid. So want to try another one? I like that one. It's fun to practice with that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, another one. So
Another
what
one.
are we gonna show?
Missing a
Again,
bid.
missing the bid?
Another
Okay.
missing bid.
With the same hawk?
Sure.
Okay. Hey, Craig. Oh my God, that's the hawk that was here last month, the one with the banded tail. Look.
Didn't you get a call from your mother today?
Yeah, I did, but look at the hawk out there.
I'm sorry, honey. I'm just
Okay, so he's not into what I'm saying at all. You know, he's off doing what he wants to do, like distracting me, talking about my mom calling.
Yeah.
So,
And oftentimes it's maybe because I'm distracted. That could be another reason. I'm just not focused. I'm not paying attention to her. I'm not listening. I'm not here. And so, you know, I don't think I would purposely, consciously just completely ignore her bid, but I'm just not present.
right, and that's what happens in relationships is that when we're distracted and we don't know the importance of making our partner a priority, then we don't. We allow distractions, we allow breakdowns in our lives to take priority in our minds. And so when we come home, we just feel like, you know, we're too overwhelmed to pay attention and we miss the importance of that. And relationships get broken down when one little interaction at a time.
Yeah.
You know, John Gottman found that it's not really like when couples divorce, it's not because I can't connect with them, I can't have those intimate conversations, because heck, I could have those with my girlfriends. Couples break down because they fail to connect with each other. When I reach out, you're not there. And it wears down on me that the connection that I long for, that we all long for, is broken one instance at a time.
We could have a whole session on cell phones, but
But we won't. There's a
we're not.
question.
I know, but I just want to say real quick.
We could. We totally could.
Real quick. I was just thinking about this as you were talking, that one real miss for a bid is you're talking, your partner's talking to you, and your cell phone rings, and you pick it up in the middle of the conversation with your partner.
Right.
That's a real can really be a destructive.
Right, and that's not turning against. That's
No.
just ignoring the bid. We say
Yeah.
missing bid. We're saying missing it because I don't even see it, or just ignoring it.
Yeah. What's the question?
We've got two questions. The first is, what do you do if your partner is distracted in their head and not present then when you're trying to give a bid for attention?
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what happens usually, is that they're distracted and they're not available to give bids. But now that you know about bids, you can't go back. And if you're watching with your spouse or with your partner, and this is what we do all the time, you know, Craig will be distracted and I'll say, hey, what do you want to do for dinner? And he'll just be, I'm kind of busy right now, right? I'll say, wait a second, I'm making a bid for attention.
Yeah, you educate me.
Right, and so I'll just remind him. I mean, he knows about bids and I do too, but sometimes we just miss them because we're distracted. And so a gentle reminder that that was kind of a bid for attention, then it reminds the person to pay attention.
Yeah.
And you know, we were preparing for this session. We both know about bids for attention. We teach it in our sessions, but it was on top of our mind. And just today, I don't remember what I said, but you said to
Is
me,
that a bid?
is that a bid for attention? I said, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And he tended to it.
Mm-hmm.
So being aware of what a bid is, how important they are, you can remind each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't be shy about labeling it as a bid and telling your partner that, hey, that was a bid. But I do believe that you know, I'm just blown away that what John Gottman said, that 86% of real great relationships are attending to these things, and that 33% end up in divorce. So I just think that having this conversation with your loved ones, your partner, is really, really important about what a bid is. And I think it's worthy of a conversation over the next week or so, that the two of you sit down and discuss. You can Google bids for attention if you want to get more information on it.
No question. Great. So we've got another question here. Is a text message a bid for attention? Do people ever miss a bid to stimulate intimacy? Example, playing hard to get, to create mystery, especially early on in the relationship? Or is that a fallacy and outdated idea?
Well,
Interesting.
I'll address the first part of that question. I'm not sure I understand the second one.
I do.
Okay, good. So I'll get the first one, he'll get the second part. Is a text message a bid for attention? Absolutely. Anything that you do with your partner to communicate, like I said in the beginning, even sitting down just going, oh, you don't really want your partner to ignore it. You kind of want your partner to say, hey, how you doing there, right? So a text message, whether it's, to create a sexual intimacy or ask how dinner is going to happen tonight, is definitely a bid for attention, and you want to respond positively to it.
Right. On the second half of your question, I think especially at the beginning of a relationship, that attending to the bids is going to send a really strong message to your partner, whether you have their back or not, whether you're the kind of partner they want to be with. I mean, I think that, game playing in terms of playing hard to get and all of that, it's a reality, I guess, to new relationships. But I think in this particular case, using bids is not the best way to play hard to get. I think it would backfire because, I don't know if there's any research about using bids at the beginning of a relationship, but all of John Gottman's research was with newlyweds. So new relationships, right? And that is where he discovered what turned out to be 33% who didn't attend to bids during the beginning of their relationship, because he only saw them for a block of time, remember? A short block of time. He's saying that he can predict with 90% accuracy during that one block of time who was going to get a divorce and who wasn't. 90% accuracy just based on how they attended to bids. So it was at the beginning of the relationship. So I think it's very important.
Okay, did we answer the second part of the question?
We did. So now we didn't get to, so turning against.
So turning against, I come home and I say, hey, Craig, what do you want for dinner? What are you going to do to turn against that?
That's a harder one to turn against because
you're always hungry.
Food. So why don't you ask me how my day was?
Okay. Hey, Craig, how was your day today?
How do you think it was? It's the same as it was every day I go to work. I don't, you know what I do. You know what it's like.
Okay. I think I'm going to go wash the dishes. So when we turn away from a bid, we're usually putting the other person down. It has a kind of a contemptuous feeling about it. So that's turning against a bid.
Right.
And the reason that, again, that is less destructive than missing a bid is because I could respond like this. Give that to me again.
Okay, ask me again.
Hey, Craig, how was your day?
It's a stupid question. You know how my day is. You know what I do. It's nothing. It's a waste of time.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry that, you're feeling that way about your day.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm asking you, I just really want to connect. I'm just trying to
That's nice.
have a
Okay.
conversation.
I'm sorry I snapped at you.
That's okay.
Yeah. But let me give a better response to your answer. Let me give a turning towards response.
Okay. Hey, Craig, how was your day?
It was okay. I saw John today and he was telling me about his wife, they might get a divorce.
Ooh.
I know.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Oh.
But
maybe we should have him over for dinner.
We should do that.
Yeah. Okay.
So turning towards versus turning against, right?
But you can see the turning against at least has an opportunity for connection.
Yeah.
And we made that connection. We may not always take the opportunity because we get insulted and we feel the disconnection. So I could have easily, after you snapped at me about your day, I could have just said, screw you, and gone in the kitchen, right? But if somebody comes at me, I have an opportunity to kind of quell that.
Yeah.
And you were talking about subtext earlier.
Right.
And, sometimes if I pay attention to the subtext, and in this situation, you were putting me down, but the subtext was, I'm really sad about work.
Yeah.
It's just not going good for me,
Mm-hmm.
And so if I pay attention to that, then I can tend to that.
True.
Right?
True. That was great. Can we
Yeah.
try another one?
Yeah. Turning against.
Okay.
Okay. So, Craig, I really want to plan a vacation. I feel like we haven't gone anywhere with this COVID and everything. I'm feeling antsy to travel.
Have you looked at our bank account lately?
No, I try to avoid that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're worried about finances. Huh? You're worried about finances.
What do you think?
I know, I can tell by
Yeah.
your response here. Yeah. So here I have an opportunity to tap into a concern that he has. He's kind of attacked me. Easy to get defensive.
Oh, yeah.
But what I can do is just say, hey, what's the concern? What's the subtext about this? Not even such, it's not below the surface, but it's right there.
Mhm.
And I can choose to tap into his concern rather than get defensive about his response.
What would you have done if you got defensive? Let's look at that. So
Okay.
Say it again.
Hey, Craig, I really want to go on vacation. I'm getting kind of antsy with this COVID stuff. I want to go someplace. Can you go
Have you looked at
someplace?
our bank account lately?
Yeah, it's probably not great. But
Yeah.
isn't there?
Okay. So good. Go take another look. You want to go on vacation?
Wait, what do you?
Unbelievable.
Okay, so it's very contemptuous. It's putting me down. It's getting a little defensive. It's a classic turning against, and that will break down a relationship.
Totally.
But again, at least with turning against, I have an opportunity to tap in. There's energy there, and that's the good part. He's giving me material to work with. He's
Mhm.
upset. He's concerned. If I'm responding from my centered place, I get curious about that concern.
Versus
Let's
miss.
talk about our finances, because I don't want to put pressure on us.
Right.
Let's talk about, I want to calm him down. Question.
Yeah, I've got a few questions.
Okay.
First one, can you guys speak to how to relate to Gottman's percentages in a way that highlights the ability to choose to steer your relationship in the right direction? The statistics are fascinating, but sometimes they also feel unsettling. Like the 86% who are successful lucked their way into their successful marriages.
Lucked?
Luck. Like lucky.
Got lucky.
They got lucky.
Oh, yeah. No, well, yeah. So here's what the deal is. The more I tend to your bids for attention and you tend to mine, the more I tend to your bids and you tend to mine. So it kind of has a kind of a positive upward spiral, right? Because we've developed that climate of tending to one another. In our relationship, I care about you. I have your back. If you say something, I am committed to you being happy, And so if you say something that you're upset, I'm right there. We're tending to each other. And in a relationship that's not working, we're doing just the opposite. We erode it by not paying attention to the bids. So it's not luck. It's really attending, it's understanding human beings and their huge desire and need to connect with one another. And when I'm in a relationship, I start paying attention. There's nothing lucky about that. And the thing is that here's the cool thing about bids for attention is I can do that on my own. I don't need you. It's kind of nice if we're both on the same page, but I can start on my own to change the climate of our relationship. I can start paying attention. And the more I do, the safer you're going to feel. And naturally, you're going to start bidding positively in my direction.
Right.
So, yeah.
Great. So a couple more questions here. How do you get better at reading the subtext in your partner?
So, the subtext is the truth that's being felt but not said, right? And it's really tuning into. So, with Craig's, I'm not, have you looked at the bank account? He's not really caring if I looked. The subtext is, we've got a financial issue going on and I'm scared. I'm really scared that we don't have the money to make whatever ends meet we need to make. So that would be kind of the subtext. And the subtext could also be, I don't feel that you share that concern with me. So go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so, it's just asking yourself, what are you really saying?
What are you really saying? My mom's famous line.
Yeah,
What are
what's
you really
concerning me?
Yeah.
And to do that, we want to stay out of being defensive, because his words can be like, what a jerk. I could take it personally. But if I come at it with curiosity, like, what's going on here? He's scared.
Yeah.
He's really concerned, and he thinks I don't really have a handle on it either. I don't share that concern. And so he's getting really defensive.
Typically with bids for attention, Debbie and I were talking about this, it seems like the desire to connect is usually underlying most bids for attention. So, if you can use that as a sort of a common subtext, is somehow your partner is either feeling disconnected from you and wants to connect. And so just keeping that in mind will
Right.
help.
Yeah.
All right, another question here. What if your bid for attention is about something you need from your partner, a comment you want to share with them about something that's difficult for you? It seems that tending to the turning against also puts you in a position of not getting what you need / what you were asking for with the bid.
So I think the question is, if it's so nice if you guys could come online so we can talk to you. But
Yeah, feel free to.
So the question is, the question was, what happens if, can you repeat that again?
What if your bid for attention is about something you need from your partner, a comment you want to share with them about something that's tough for you, that's difficult for you?
Right.
It seems that tending to the turning against also puts you in a position of not getting what you need or want. What you were asking for with the bid.
Right.
Excellent.
So the question is, what happens if you want to share something with your partner and that's really, really difficult? And so there's a level of vulnerability, a level of concern about how my partner's going to respond, and is she going to turn against it, right? And that's a concern. So
And the second part of that was if I enable that, if I go and like you did,
right,
support my issue, now I've lost my concern in that process.
Right. So, first of all, and here's the interesting thing about this whole arena, is that making bids can sometimes be scary, because I'm concerned about how you're going to respond, and I'm not comfortable even bringing the subject up. And so what John found is in the disasters, they would just ignore those subjects. They would just turn against them, and in other areas they would like, well, you just never listen, right? Rather than making a nice
Right.
bid, or they would just make like very superficial bids, like comments, not questions. They wouldn't dig deep. So if you have a bid, if you have a topic that you really want to bring up with your partner, it's really important to take that risk, but do it in a nice way. I would say, listen, there's something I really want to talk about, and I'm kind of scared to bring it up, but it's important to me. And I'm just wondering if we can have that conversation. That's a really respectful bid, and you're seeding it for success. This is not easy for me. I'm kind of uncomfortable with it, but I really want to talk to you. Would that be okay?
Yeah, and we've talked about how to have a conflict inducing conversation before, and there's lots of strategies.
A
conflict reducing conversation. Let's say a stress reducing conversation.
I'm gonna have a conversation with you.
So when you talk to this person who you're wanting to give a bid to, and you're a little nervous about it, you can preface it by using some of the strategies that we've talked about before, which is, can you just mirror me? I don't really want your advice. I don't really want your opinion.
It stinks.
I just want to share with you what I'm feeling right now. When I'm done, if you have something you want to share, that's fine. But for the time being, could you just listen? It's really important to set the stage.
And that's a bid in itself.
That
you
is
just
a bid.
listen. I just
Yeah.
want you to listen.
Yeah.
So is there another question?
Yeah, it's a great question. All of the examples so far have been verbal bids. Are there things that change when we talk about nonverbal bids?
Absolutely. So nonverbal bids are often made because they're less scary to make. If I come home and I'm really like mad about something, right? But I'm not really good at talking about things. So I may come and I might start slamming the dishes a little bit, or I may just say, oh. Now, the problem with that is it's safer for me to do it. I may not be really good at talking about things like that. I don't want to burden him with it. But the energy of my distraughtness is all over the place. The problem is that he's going to pick it up and he may take it personally. What did I do now? Was she pissed off? There's something.
I can't do
bet it's
anything
because I
right.
can't do anything right. She's always mad at me. And the fact is, I'm not mad at him. I'm mad at something that happened at work.
Well, you might be mad at me, but you're not really expressing it.
So in a relationship where you're tending to bids, it would be like this. I shove something down. What are you going to do? It is a bid for attention. I come home and I do this. Oh,
Are you all right? What's going on?
I was had a bad day.
Yeah.
I'm just so frustrated at work. I
Tell
can't
me
even
about
believe it. Oh my God, can't even imagine what happened. Yeah. Okay. Turning toward, right? Opening me up. Because I put a bid on the table that was easy. It wasn't risky for me. Oh, dinner's here.
Just in time. What's the question?
We gotta go. Okay, question, 5 minutes remaining.
What do you do if you don't know how to respond to the bid, but you don't want to be perceived as ignoring it or rejecting it?
Okay, that's a great question. The question is, what do you do if you don't know how to respond to it, but you don't want to ignore it and you don't want to reject it? So it could be, trying to imagine what that could be, but you could respond to a bid by saying, you know what, I'm not quite sure how to respond to that. I think I need a minute to think this through. We're serious about our food. I think I need some time to think this through. And I need to get it kind of clear in my head. Can I ask you a question about what you just asked me or what you just said? I'm just kind of curious. I'm trying to get my head around this one. So I would just put it out there. I don't know. We don't always have to have the answers, I would come from the heart and be honest.
Yeah, and sometimes, it's okay to say that I don't feel like I can respond at this time. For example, people come home and sometimes they're tired. They need some space. They need some alone time. And, I was just with a couple today and the big issue is that the gentleman, in this case, needs personal space. And at the same time that his wife would like some attention. So finding a way to let each other know that, I'm not able to respond to your bid right now because I need some personal space right now. I need to just decompensate from work. But you know what? Give me a half an hour and I'll be there. So it's just like, okay, I hear you, but not now. Another way of handling it.
Yeah, and the cool thing about bids for attention, even though John did his research with married couples, they really apply to any relationship, just like most of what we talk about really applies. So think about your friends, think about your parents, think about your children for sure. We're always making bids to one another, and how fluent we are in terms of identifying them and how able and willing we are to respond to them positively will define the quality of our relationships. It's really that simple. And so that's what I love about partnerships, is that it's a perfect laboratory to practice how we can connect with another human being.
And that's why we call this Mindful Monday, is because just like bids and all the things we talk about, it's about being mindful. It's about paying attention to what's going on. So here's a homework assignment. Sit down with your partner, friend, family member, whomever, sit down with somebody and then talk about, what are your bids for attention? What kind of bids do you make? And then kind of maybe you can track the bids during the day. Kind of even think about what is your partner sending you? What are you picking up? And kind of have some fun with it. Label them. Oh, there's a bid. Oh, there's a bid. Oh, there's a bid. I've been doing that a little bit today. It's been kind of fun. So, you know, and as Debbie said earlier, it's okay to say to your partner, hey, I'm making a bid for attention. So you begin to kind of bring it into consciousness, conscious awareness. So have fun with it, enjoy it, but make it part of your relationship practice.
And the part to make is really just make a lot of bids.
Yeah.
You know, just make bids. A lot of times people are unwilling or unable. It's scary to make a bid.
Yeah.
But make a lot of bids and then receive a lot of bids.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
So thank you for being with us today. We really appreciate it. It's been a joy. We love doing this and we love having you here. So keep coming.
Yeah, thanks for showing up, and we really appreciate the questions. And next time, we don't know what we're going to talk about, but if you have any ideas, let us know. And also, we're always open to working with a couple. Maybe it's a particular issue that you're struggling with, and we will make time if you let us know the day of. We'll set aside maybe 5 to 7 minutes to work with you individually on the call, and you get our one-on-one, you know, help as you would if you were in session with us. And the reason that we do that and feel it's so important is because if you're struggling with it, chances are everyone else is to some extent or on a similar issue. So you're really doing everybody a service and you're getting some help too, hopefully. So anyhow, thanks again for joining us. Have a good night. And what's that?
We're curious what's for dinner.
I don't know. We ordered, what did we order?
Salmon.
Salmon.
Salmon. I have a salmon Caesar, and
I have a salmon bowl with rice and veggies.
what are you having for dinner, Joe?
We ate already. We had leftover barbecue from yesterday.
Oh, that's good. Nice. Happy Father's Day, by the way.
Happy Father's Day to all you fathers out there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And have a good night, you guys.
Okay. Enjoy. We're going to go eat.
Thank you, Craig and Debbie.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.